Hi, and welcome to the Google Sites training session. So this is a screencast-by version of what we went over in our Zoom session. And the focus today is the website creation tool, Google Sites. If you need access to this slide deck, there is the short link that is on the screen. And it's also on just the reference material sheet for this specific session. And know with Screencastify and with our videos that you can always go back and rewatch them over again. So if we go through something a little too quickly and you need to pause it and go back, you are more than welcome to go and do that, or pause if you want to play and practice something along the way. So goals for our session today are to learn how to use Google Sites to create websites and use those websites to further universal design for learning and our learning environment. Practice building a Google site. So there's a point in time in the session where the idea is to have you pause the video, experiment with using some of the features in Google Sites that you've learned, and kind of apply what you've learned. And then to lastly, identify and plan ways that you can use Google Sites in your lessons, whether it's as a resource for your students and your parents to learn about what's going on in the classroom. So it's a communication tool that you use as a teacher, or it's a project tool that your students use to showcase their understanding. So, without further ado, what is Google Sites? As the name implies, Google Sites is a website creation tool by G Suite or Google. So, what's great about Google Sites is that because it is a Google product, all of the other Google features are built into it. So, it's cloud based, which means that it saves everything automatically. It's all linked to your Google account. So, that means you can easily bring in any Google resources that you've made and created into a Google site. So forms, slides, documents, anything from Google Drive, pictures, YouTube videos, all of those can go into a site. And it's really flexible and creative in that you can use it for more than just what a typical website would be. It could be an e-portfolio of your work or your students' work. It can be a blog, it can be a newsletter. Really, creativity is just limited by what you come up with and just your willingness to try new things. So, what's also great is that you can share your Google site with the world. It doesn't have to be something that is just limited to people with a Google account or with BCSC. It is a website like other ones. It can be viewed if you have an internet browser. So, why Google Sites? It's compatible on many devices. There are many website creation tools and software out there. Not all of them look very clean and are very compatible with a mobile phone. Google Sites has a viewer where you can test and see what your site looks like on a phone, so you really get an idea on what that would look like for a student who's maybe using their cell phone to look at your Google site. And it's friendly for phones because of that. It integrates with Google Sites with not Google Sites. Google Sites integrates with Google Drive really easily, so you don't have to be converting your files and documents to where they can be compatible on this. They already are. You just have to bring them in and just make sure that your sharing settings are set to where anyone can view if you're putting it on a Google site that anyone has access to. Anyone can view a Google site. So if you really want to have your students practice sharing their work with a wider audience, so really launching their project so it has more meaning and has a bigger impact, this is a tool that can help you do that. Obviously, just a little disclaimer here, if you are using Google Sites in class and you're sharing it out with the world, just make sure that there's not any personally identifiable information on that. And that if a student is publishing information out there and putting a Google site for others to view, that they're not telling too much about themselves and that they're still being protective of their identity because they are all minors. So just be mindful of that. And then obviously don't share student grades and things like that on a Google site. Not that you would do that, but there is the capacity for you to share a Google site with a wider audience, which means that if a student works really hard on a project and does a lot of research and time investment, then it shouldn't just be the teacher who ends up seeing all of that work, right? It'd be a lot more exciting for the student if that goes beyond and they get recognition and know that others are looking at their work. So this is a way of doing that. There are a couple of sample Google sites here, and maybe you've stumbled across these websites before. They're ones that I've used in trainings, and they were all made with Google Sites product, but they all look very different. So the idea here is that I wanted to show you that sites can look very different. You can customize them, tailor them to however you need. They can be really detailed and thorough, like my e-learning websites are, or they can be a little bit more simple. And you do have the ability to bring in lots of different multimedia. So just to show you that, I'll pull you into a few sites and then you can obviously tinker through and play with more of those on your own. But here's an example of a Google site. There's the top navigation banner. You can upload a logo in Google Sites, like what I did here, and then it changes the color scheme of your whole website to use the colors of your logo, which was really cool. So I didn't have to go through and change everything to be the BCSC maroon color. It did that for me. These are all pictures that I pulled from Google Image Search and from my Google Drive. And you can easily add videos like what I did here and other links to resources. So that is an example of a little bit more thorough Google site. Another example here is one that was more of a lesson design idea. So this was a lesson for teachers on how to create an escape room. And if you've done the Google Superhero PD, then you've probably seen this. This is a task related to that. This is a Google Drawing and Google Slide that I brought into this. It has hyperlinks and things on it. Again, a Google form. So really, a Google site is taking all of your Google skills that we've been building on and working towards and putting them a little bit more together and a little bit more advanced. So here's an option for a website. And this website's only 1 page long, so it's a little bit shorter. And then the other one here is another detailed one. So if you want to play around with those and get a little bit more of an idea on the different options and things you can put in a site, that's how you can do that. All right, so lesson ideas and examples of how you can use Google Sites in lessons. So Google Sites, like I said, could be a really great idea for students to showcase their understanding. It can be a project. Maybe they create a blog to show their understanding, or they write a blog based on a person of the past they've been studying. Maybe their blog or their website is through the eyes of a character in a book, or it's an alternate ending to a book, or it's studying something in science class. It could be a research report, but in a Google Sites format. So they're learning 21st century technology skills, but also learning the content that goes along with that. You can even create Google Sites that can be e-portfolios as well. So students could use them as a portfolio of the work they've done in your class throughout the year. They can pull anything they've made from Google Drive and put it in there, and it's just a showcase of their talents and their work. Could be an option for book reports. If you run a club outside of school, you can also use Google Sites to be the resource for your club webpage. Whether it's a school-sponsored club or something else, you can have access to this and use it. You can use it as a communication tool for parents. If you want to have a website for parents to see what students are up to or to know of any important field trips or newsletter info, this could be a place to host that information. You can also use Google Site for storytelling and journaling as well. So it can be a place where students can really practice writing skills or video by putting videos on their sites. They can do that. Or it could be a digital escape room. So you have lots of options there. It's really up to you. And on one of my last slides in the slide deck, I show you links to different resources, whether specific lesson ideas and how you can use Google Sites and model exemplars so you can have an idea on how real teachers have used these in their lessons. All right, moving ahead. So next thing we're going to focus on is actually building a site. So at this point in the slide deck, I will warn you, I will stray away from these slides so you can see what some of these different features are within Google Sites. You can practice building and pausing. So the slides are here for your reference. I did put some screenshots in there. It's not encompassing of every single button in Google Sites because there are a lot of them, and this slide deck would probably be almost 100 slides if I put every single screenshot in there, but I put the key ones that you would need to know if you're getting started with just a basic Google site. So that being said, the way you get started with Google Sites is a couple of different options. You could just type in your top URL bar, sites.new. That's it, sites.new. Oh, it's always the way it goes. You're typing in front of people and type something wrong. And it brings me to a blank new website. But if I don't like that and I actually want to see what the templates and things are there that Google already has for me, because there are templates, if I click the Google Apps menu over here and scroll a little bit further down the page, Sites is one of the Google apps I can select. So I'll click that. And then if you get taken to this page, it's because at some point in time, you used the old Google Sites, which was about circa 2014. The new Google Sites is a lot better than that one. That one was very clunky and had lots of really dated clip art. I don't know why I haven't deleted that website yet, but it is still there. If you get taken to this page, you'll just click the new Google Sites. If you don't get taken to this page, then you are in the new Google Sites, which looks like this, which is probably where most people go to because you're probably not still using a website from 6 years ago and using that very often. I don't know why I still have that one on there. So here is the main page for getting started with Google Sites. So below here are any site that I've made, as well as any sites that others have shared with me. Like I said, Google Sites is another Google product, so it does have the ability to be collaborative. So you can share Google Sites with someone else and they can be an editor on that. I'm not the owner of all of these sites, but these are all examples of them. And then up here are templates. So you don't have to start a Google site from scratch. You can borrow from a template that Google has made for you. If you want to see the full gallery, click Template Gallery, and there they are. And these have specific focus. The nice thing about a template is that it does a lot of the formatting for you. It has nice font selected, pictures, color schemes, layouts on there where you can easily add a picture. It does the formatting for you. So the only thing you really have to do is just plug in information or replace pictures with things that are more relevant to what your site is focused on. But if you are wanting to start from scratch, click blank. And that's actually what I'm going to do to show you. So the best bit of advice I can give you before you get too far into playing around with sites is really think about what the focus of your website is going to be and what the different web pages are. So for me, when I made websites for e-learning, I knew I wanted to have different strands and different focus, and those turned into my web pages. So my different pages across the top of my site. So I have my home page, my about page, contact, and then one for students, one for parents, because I knew those are my main themes of my site. So it's really helpful that when you go through and you teach students how to do this, and when you're modeling how to use Google Site, that you kind of have that similar format. So it's kind of helpful to write down on paper and organize your thoughts, what your outline of your site might be, and how you want to organize your information before you go through and start doing too much planning and then have to rearrange things in the end. You can still do that, but that's just a bit of advice speaking from experience. So things to know now that we have our site started. You have to give it a title first. So this is just the name of your website. So for this one, we'll do making a site about Google Sites training. So once I've done that, it shows up here, and this is what my viewers will see on my website is my website name. This first page it shows you by default is your home page for your Google site. So you automatically have a home page. You can name this. I usually name it the same as my website, but you can name it home if you want to, like some people do. I'm just going to name it the same as my website, so it's very clear that that's what the focus of this website is. So I have my name here, I have it here. You notice while I was typing, I had some options here. I could change my format, I could change the type of text it is, bigger, smaller, bold. I can add a link if I wanted to. Not super relevant for this specific page, but I could if I wanted, or I could delete this. Now, what's also cool is that I can add a logo. So if you have a logo for a club or something specific you want to use on your site, if I click add logo, it brings up this menu. And on the other ones I showed you with the BCSC examples, those I uploaded a logo into, and it pulls the colors from the logo to generate a theme color and color scheme for your website automatically. So I always like to try to upload a logo just so I can see if Google can automatically make a color scheme for my website for me, so I don't have to go through and do that myself, because I don't like to spend time on that. But if you are really into picking the themes and colors for your website, by all means, do your thing. But if you want to upload a logo, this is how you do it. You'll click upload, or you do select, it pulls up from a Google image search. So let's see what we can find. Let's pick this logo. All right, so it automatically put that logo in the corner. I think I'm actually going to pick a different one because that was not very colorful, and I want you to see the different colors that come up. So I don't have that many pictures saved on here, so this might be part of my problem. Let's do this one instead. All right, so see what it did here? It automatically picked some colors here for me to use in my theme. So I'm gonna go with this green color in my theme. And then over here on the right-hand side, it has themes pulled up and it picked this green color that came up from my logo that I uploaded. So I'm gonna open that up again. And if you're wondering what is a favicon, that basically just makes a little button on your site in multiple places. So I always like to pick the same picture as my logo. Open, and it uploads it. And again, you're like, what's a favicon? It tells you a little bit more here, but it basically just gives a little smaller logo to your site and it's there. Alt text makes it so that if someone who's visually impaired is looking at your website, it has a description written out for them on their screen reader that would read over it and tell you what that logo is. So I would just put maybe it's descriptive or indescriptive as you want there, but that's what it would do. It would, if someone was using a screen reader, it would make sure to read that description of that image out loud to them. So there we go. I have a different colored background now because it pulled that theme based on my logo that I put there. But let's do a little bit more info on what all of this means up here and then in our header. So if we're looking here, I can change the image. I don't have to keep this green color in the background. This is the same for any page that you add to your site. So if I want to choose something with a little bit more of a generic background, I could select that. Kind of like this green. All right, there we go. And it automatically adjusts it for readability. So in this case, it changed my font color from black to white. So it was easier for people to read on my site. If I don't want it to be this color, I could do reset. I can also change the type of header I have. So if I want it to be a bigger header, I could change that. Large banner, banner is the normal one, the default, or just title only. So it's just that font color. So it's up to you and how you want that to look. I'm just going to go with banner here so it has a little bit more meat to it and looks a little bit more colorful. So that is just the general settings here on your initial page of your site. Other things to know across the top here that are super important for editing your site and sharing it with others and getting a preview of what it looks like. As I said, Google Sites is a cloud-based product, so it saves all the changes automatically. Here is where it's telling you that it saved them in Drive. So you can always access this through your Google Drive as well. There's an undo and redo button, so if you mess up, you don't have to start over or go way back in the past and find it. You can easily just click those buttons. Preview mode is kind of how I was explaining that if you use Google Sites, it's compatible on different devices. Preview shows you what it looks like on different devices. So by default, it's going to show you what it looks like on a web browser, like a computer, like what I'm using right now. But if I wanted to see what it looks like on a smaller device, like a tablet, it gives me a preview of that, and I can scroll through my site if I had more substance on there. And I can also look at it as I would if it was on a cell phone, which is this last option here. So I can see what it looks like on a cell phone, and if I need to resize anything or delete anything, if it's not looking the way I want it to. And to close out of this, you just click the X button, exit preview. All right, so that's the main gist of those buttons there. Here is where it's kind of like a share button where you can add someone else as being a collaborator on the site or someone who's a viewer. So if you want someone else to be able to view your website and make changes, you can share it with them directly there. Here is the settings on a Google site. I don't usually mess around with this a whole lot because I personally like the default settings that come up. Brand images, we already did that. That's where we uploaded our logo, and I always do that first, so I don't have to worry about this anymore. Navigation basically changes it so that if I have multiple pages on my website, so I have my home page, I have an about tab, I have a contact me page on my website, then you can change that to where those site those buttons to get to those tabs are across the top or on the side, and what color that navigation bar is. So right now it's transparent, but I could change that to where it's white, and you'll see a change now on my site. My top banner is white, or I can change that to black if I want to as well. So you have a little bit of option there. Transparent just takes on the same look of your logo you have right here in your header color. 3-dot button just allows you to see the version history and duplicate your site too. So if you want to use this as a template, your students would need to have a duplicated version of this site, so they would have all of your basic settings and things on there. All right, so moving on, publish button here is where you click the publish button and then you can get the link that you would share with others so they can see your website and its finished product. All right, so adding multimedia to your site. I've been talking about how it's really easy to add all these different pieces and content to your Google site. Here is how you can do that. Insert button is where the magic happens. That's where you can add the multimedia. So by default, it puts a couple of buttons here that are frequently used. So if I want to add a text box, I can. Pictures from my computer, my Google Drive, Google Image Search, Google Photos, options there. I can embed something. So if I have a YouTube video or another video I want to embed, or a Google form I want to embed, I can add it there, or just pull something from my Google Drive. Bit of a warning here though. If you are adding anything from your Google Drive, whether it's a document, slide, form, PDF, whatever have you, just make sure that the settings on that specific individual document are set to where anyone can view them. Otherwise, if I'm someone outside of BCSC and I'm looking at my site, and I'm looking at this site, if I don't have permissions to view that document, I'll get an error message. So an example is if I add a Google Doc right now and I have it set to where I'm the only one who can see it, then if I share it with a colleague, they won't be able to see that. So same thing for your students. If you're wanting to showcase their work with a wider audience and it's people outside of school, then they make sure that anything they put in their site is set to where people can see it. That's something that we see students forget to do quite a bit, and it's easily fixed, but just something to know up front so you can plan for that. So those buttons are there to use, and you can use them as you may. But my bit of advice here and my hack is that I don't like having to go through and format things and resize pictures all the time and redo everything if I don't have to. I'm going to try to save as much time as possible. What's nice is that Google has layouts already designed here for you for how you can arrange multimedia and text and pictures and resources on your site with minimal effort on your end. So I like to pick from these and then fill them in with my content instead of building from scratch. So if I know I want to have some pictures here and some content, maybe a little welcome message, I'll select this layout. And after I pick that layout, it automatically puts it in my site, and here's where I can edit it. So I can put my welcome message. If you see here, when I typed in that box, I had some formatting options here for this title text. It automatically, thanks to this layout, made it in a different color. And I can change that if I want to, make it bold, put a link. Same here, I have all these options. So if I want to put links to other resources, I can. Other just basic format options. And then here is the way this layout is set up is that this is for a piece of multimedia to go in, like a picture. So I'm going to select. It gives me some options here. I can upload from my device, select one from Google Images if I want, YouTube. I have choices. So I'm going to select from Google Image Search. Select and insert. So if I do that, you notice that it's not the same size as the picture. I have the ability to resize if I want. And there we go. I can even add this as a link too. Maybe I want to link it to a separate site. So if I want to arrange things a little bit differently here, maybe I don't want this picture on the side anymore. What's also nice about Google Sites is that even if you use a layout, you have a lot of flexibility in how you can arrange things. So I can drag and drop things and move them elsewhere, change where things are located if I want. These are now all linked together, but I can put this back where it was if I want. So you have some choice there, and you can manipulate anything as you like, which is the same if you have a layout or not. So I can keep following those steps and keep using those layouts as I go down my page. Other things to know, right below layouts, I have more options for media I can insert into my Google site. Collapsible text is basically takes a paragraph and puts it into its one line. I personally don't like to use that one a whole lot unless it's lots of writing and you don't want your website to be super long and scrolling. That's a choice. Table of contents, image carousel is kind of like a scrolling slideshow. So if I click image carousel, I have to pick a couple of different images. And again, I can upload those from my device or from a Google image search. And select a few. There's maybe example ones. And it doesn't always let you do that. So it just depends on your site settings. So depends on the file size, I think, more than anything else. You have to have at least 2 images in an image carousel. So I'm just going to upload a couple of random ones here that really have nothing to do with Google Sites, but just so you can see. All right. So whenever I'm finished there, I'm good. If I want to change the settings here, I can turn it to where it auto starts. So I don't have to do anything. And this basically just sets that scrolling speed for my carousel. So it is set there. I can resize that if I want, make it smaller, bigger, move it somewhere else on the page. That's an image carousel. Other options, divider, placeholder, I can add things directly from YouTube, whether I've uploaded it or someone else has. I just do a little simple search here, and I can easily add a tutorial video that goes along with my website or from somewhere else, or I can add a video from my Google Drive. And here's where I can add all of my Google files. So if I want to add a document to this, I'll just click Docs, and then it brings up any and all Google Docs I have access to, and I can share those on my site. And I can resize those if I want. And if you're looking at this and you're thinking that only shows a little bit of my document, you can resize it to where it's bigger, but know that whenever you have a Google resource like this on a Google site, it gives anyone this little pop-out view as well, so they can view it in another tab, so they don't have to have that small view. I always like to resize things just to be safe that they can see it, but they also have that option. So that is how you can add different multimedia to your site. You can add text and descriptions and just keep going with that, make it as simple or as complicated as you so choose. Other key things to know here is we've kind of gone through this insert page, we've added some different bits and pieces and multimedia to our site. Now, let's say that I'm done working on my welcome page and I want to have a separate page that focuses on how to ask for help. So additional resources or contact. So I'm going to click Pages. And right now I only have a home page. If I want to add more, I'll click this little plus button here. And now I can give a new page a title. Put that one there, and it automatically makes a new page for me. And if you notice, now my navigation bar across the top has different web pages on it. I want to add another one. I'll click the plus button again. And to this one, let's just do a couple tutorial videos. Then let's do one more. All right, so now I have a couple of different pages on here. Now let's say that I want to change the order. Maybe I want tutorial videos to be the second one. So I want to rearrange my order. I drag and drop, and there we go. If I wanted to add subpages, maybe my tutorial videos has some focus on specific features in Google Sites. You can add subpages, so this can be way more complicated. And to give you an example of what subpages look like in Google Sites, I'm going to pull up an example of one that I made. And you're probably wondering, why would you add subpages? I use subpages if this gets too cluttered. I want people on my website to be able to see every navigation banner that's there. And if they are too lengthy and it gets too long and you can't see all of them, I add subpages so that if you click this, you see a drop-down menu. So it doesn't look as cluttered. So here is an example of a pretty meaty website because there's a lot of info on here and you guys have probably seen this one 1,000 times. But this is an example of where I use submenus and subpages because under more, I didn't want to make a page for every single one of these and add to my whole menu there. So if I go to pages, you'll see a little drop-down menu under student services. And those are all little subpages for those roles. So probably not a feature you'd use all the time. But if you're making a pretty substantial website, then that's a helpful thing to know. If you want to make one of those pages your home page, you can do that from here. You can duplicate a page. If you set the formatting on one and you don't have to keep redoing that over and over and over again, strongly recommend duplicating the page before you make a new one. And you can also hide it from navigation if you publish your site and it's not ready for everyone to view that page yet. It's hidden to them, visible to you, or you can delete it. So that is how you add a page. And to add media to this new page, same process as before. I'll click insert. I can add a layout if I want. Click it, add it there, put all my good stuff in there. If I need to, add my different bits and pieces. And again, see, it's all saving everything there. Themes is the last thing I want to draw your attention to before we show how we share our website with the world. So by default, the first thing I had you do was add a logo to your site. So you're ready to go there. If you don't have a logo and if you want to still kind of play around with the colors and the fonts of your website, themes is where you can do that. You can pick your different theme options here. There's not a ton, but there's a few. So after I select my theme, I even have options within that. So I can change the different colors that come up. If you upload a logo, again, it pulls from that, but you can always change it here if you want to. I can change my font style too if I want. I want to do a different one, like the heavy font that was listed there, because it goes a little bit better with my Google logo. I can do that and it changes it across the site. So that is how you can change your theme of your site. Whenever I am finished with my site and I'm ready to share this with the world so someone else can view it, probably guessed it, but this publish button is how I do that. I'll click publish and it brings it up across the top here. So the web address is basically what you use to the title of your site. So if you notice here, there are some words you cannot use in your site's training. So I'm actually going to change the name of my website so it will make one for me. All right, so it renamed it for me. Change here. I click publish. Okay. Usually it generates it for you to where you don't have to type that in, but because I had picked something that was so generic for mine that there are probably hundreds of other websites out there, that's why it didn't do that. But this is actually showing me what my full URL is to get to my website for others to be able to see. So this is what others would see. Now, if you notice here, I can customize that. I can make it something else if I want to. So you have a little bit of control over what your web address is. The only thing you don't have control over is all of this stuff above it. And the reason why it shows this is that Google Sites is linked to our BCSC Google domain. So everything you make is associated with BCSC. So that's why, again, it's really important that you only put things out there that you want to be associated with BCSC and with your school ID, because that's where all of this is tied to. Sites is a special thing that we have because we are a Google for Education school district and we have access to this because of that. Now, if you notice who can view my site, by default, it is always set to where only people within BCSC can see it. If that's what you want, that's fine. You can click publish, grab your link, and you're good to go. But if you want to change this to where other people can see your site, you know the information on your site is okay for others to see. I can also share it with people here if I want them to give editing access. But if I want to get a link to where people could just view my website, right now it just tells me that only people in BCSC can view it. I'll select this drop-down menu and I'll click public. And I'll click done. And now here we go. My published settings look a little bit different, and it now tells me that anyone can view my site. I don't want search engines to be able to pull this up, then I can select that. But I would click publish. Sometimes it takes a second, especially if you've added quite a bit to your site, and it tells me it's been published successfully, but you're probably wondering, where is my link? How do I share this with people? Across your top navigation banner, in between your share with others and your preview button, is a link button. I click that. Here is my full website link. I would copy this, and then that is what I'm sending this to you. That is what I would put right there, and what people would see. That's what they would see when they come to my website, how they'd access it. Now, if you want to make changes to your website, your changes will automatically save. So I'm going to add something here. So let's say I make a change on my website, put some more things on there because it's evolving and growing and improving over time. It will save my changes. However, it does not make those changes visible to everyone else until you publish those changes. So anytime you make an edit on your site, and if you're ready for other people to see those edits and it's finalized, make sure you click publish again. And it will tell you, it will bring up a view right now that shows you that this is what's currently published and here were the differences that you made. And if you're ready for those changes, those new edits to go through, you'll click publish. If not, then you can just delay doing that. But if I want to keep it, I'll do publish. And now everyone can see my new and improved website. So I'm actually going to skip through all of my slides here because I just showed you all of those within Google Sites itself. But now would be the time for you to pull up sites on your own and do some practice if you would like, look through some of the resources that I put out there. And last thing I want to show you before you go for the day, here are some additional resources to help you as you begin your adventure with Google Sites. There are lesson ideas here for a lot of different subject areas in grade level, ranging from using Google Sites as book reports in an English class at any grade level to using it as a communication tool with parents and families. Here are some helpful resources if you want to get students started on how to use Google Sites, but aren't really sure how to train them on how to do that and how to teach them how to build a good website. There are resources here that are geared towards students and some you can use in pre-use lessons as well. Other things here, step-by-step written guide that walks you through everything I just showed you and even more. Projects and ideas there, lesson samples, ways to use Google Sites in lessons, and then ways to use Google Sites for powerful e-portfolios. So those are all great starting points if you want even more ideas. If you have questions, please let us know. We are here to help and love to give you advice and lesson ideas. This is where you can contact me if you have questions. Other thing I do want to ask is that we have a survey that will be at the end of my slideshow here. And it's just a way for us to get feedback on the different technology things that we share with you. And here is that feedback. Just fill out this form really quick. It's only a couple of questions. Gives us helpful feedback on what we should offer again and what you'd like to see in our next technology training. So thank you so much for joining today as we learned about Google Sites. And I hope I see you in a Zoom or a video training in the near future.